flowers on your stone. We both know that I was wrong. We both know I'm not like that anymore. I'm not far behind. We both know that I was wrong. We both know I'm not like that anymore.
You got the topic for today, sir?
Maniac Monday, so we're going to be talking about some investigation stuff on the recent bridge investigations. Yep. We'll get to more of that later.
Yes.
But we're going to be talking about also some of the maniacs of history. So, you know, your dictators, your cult leaders, you know, your serial killers, you know, any of that kind of stuff you guys want to talk to. Hey, what's up, guys?
What's up, David and Randy? If that's both you or
one or both,
one or both.
You know?
What's up, David?
What's guys? How you guys doing? So tonight we're doing Maniac Monday, and we're talking about any kind of, like I said, you know, dictators, serial killers, cult leaders, any kind of creepy people. You know, your John Wayne Gacy's. You know, what was the People's Church, and I mean, some people even say Scientology is one, but it's a whole other bag of worms.
Oh, yeah.
We're using a new tarot deck, and the other day I didn't have my booklet ready, and I looked very silly.
Nah.
Oh, I looked very silly. So we'll do the same thing. We'll shuffle up, as we always do, and we do a tarot card pull, a single card pull at the beginning of every episode, and we shuffle up, put our intentions into the deck as we're doing that. And
excuse me.
Try to get some kind of insight, some kind of message for the show.
Yep.
And I was not familiar with this deck. I've had it for a while, but I haven't messed with it as much as the other deck I have. And I wasn't familiar with some of the terms because it's an Alice in Wonderland one, so it's a little different than your typical tarot deck.
David says at work again, listening. Shh. We won't tell. It's our secret.
It's our secret, man. No worries.
Are you watching from both YouTube and?
I don't know. We have e.v.p mediums on the
so it must
YouTube.
Be David.
And shouts out to them. You know, we've talked about it in a couple episodes.
Yes,
but
we did.
We were on their show and
yes.
we were interviewed with them.
Yes.
It was a wonderful time. So
yes,
you know, check out David and Randy. They're wonderful people.
Mm-hmm.
And
e.v.p mediums. It's on YouTube.
And then Paranormal Road.
Paranormal Road is their podcast
Yep.
on any of your podcast platforms.
And they really they gave us a wonderful interview, and they gave us some wonderful stories that they told us, and we can't wait to interact with those guys
Great
again.
bunch of guys. We can't wait to have all those fireside chats and cryptid hunts and ghost stories to tell.
Somebody kill the corona.
Someone killed that already.
COVID needs to go.
That guy from House needs to get his meds so he can solve this right now, damn it.
You want Hugh Laurie to come? Yep, alright, that's fair, that's fair.
That is fair. That is fair.
Alright, go ahead and shuffle up a little bit.
Shuffling. Every day I'm shuffling.
So, we're about to pull our tarot card for the night, so everybody be ready
Here we
for
go,
this.
here we go. What's it going to be?
Oh, it's the Queen of Oysters in the reverse position. So let's see what that means.
Reverse position. Oh boy. Get out your little That is a small little handy book. Hey, Tracy. We just doing our tarot card pull for tonight. And tonight's Maniac Monday, provided by this guy. And I've... Look at it.
We even talked about it.
No, I forgot to turn this part off. I turned it... Whatever. My phone's weird. Well, hello there, guys and gals.
All right,
Joe?
Joe, what's up? All right, so for the Queen of Oysters in the reverse, it's false front, underdeveloped ego, need to impress, evil and suspicion, viciousness, irresponsibility. So, I'm not sure what that's about. I feel like we're not ever given a false front.
No, we're never getting a false front.
Maybe it's something that's been presented to us that's been false. Well, okay. Let's talk about it. We've been doing the Jate stuff, and we've been out there in Helltown, and there's a lot of false stuff and like inflated stuff out there.
Okay, that's what we're talking about.
That could be it, because we've been out there so much recently. There's so much of that energy on us.
Trying to uncover a lot of the truths and not the legend, because everyone keeps asking about the legend, the legend, the legend. No, we're just after the truth in that area, and that's a pretty big area and a lot of stuff going on in that area.
So I think that might be the message for us there.
We want to share the truth, not the legend.
So, getting into Maniac Monday, I'm going to talk about my first story of the night, and that's Charles Manson, because he passed away not too long ago.
We talked about this a little bit earlier about his energy and whatnot in the walls.
Well, and that's what I want to talk about. So, a lot of people talk about energy, and energy is a big part of not only just spirituality, but a number of things.
Yes.
But it's a big part of spirituality. So when you're talking about energy, you know, you think about somebody who has a lot of built-up hatred, a lot of negativity, and things of that nature, and you look at somebody like Charles Manson, and you're like, oh, wow, this guy could definitely be, you know, full of so much hatred that when he passes, it could just go out into the universe,
and it didn't decrease over time when he was in prison. It just seemed to increase more and more.
Well, and he was such a wild person, wild personality. And he's not the only person. I'm just using him as a reference because he was so popular, you know? And so that's my first maniac of the night I would like to talk about is, you know, Charles Manson and, you know, his ability to manipulate and change the minds of the people he worked with. You know, it's kind of an amazing, crazy story.
And things from the chat. David started a watch party. So thank you there, David.
Yeah,
and
thank you so much.
Joe says, I am a maniac. Good old Joe. Stirring it up in there. Mine will be what we just said about what a tarot card pull. It would be the legend of the Helltown area.
Yeah.
How part of the legend is why that place is like that is because of certain demonic cults in the area.
Exactly.
That worship and done things in that area. Or by that red barn, there's that slaughter. They said they slaughtered people in that red barn. And they slaughtered people in the other barn up at the Stanford house. None of that's true.
Yeah. And it's really weird when you're looking at some of that stuff because, you know, everything is always tossed, you know, at Satanism. And it's not always, you know, Satanistic stuff.
No,
you know,
it's not always.
There's different things that people can pull rituals from other than, like, Satanistic
things. Oh, yeah,
things.
they can do worships in there.
In modern day, you know, like, Satanists are not really the people you would think they are, you know, for the most part. They're actually mostly pretty peaceful and relaxed people. But it's a whole other story.
And that's what they said the black-eyed children came from. Black-eyed children can be interdimensional beings. So
and the interdimensional stuff is really interesting because everything is now being attached to interdimensional. You know, the black-eyed children, not the black-eyed peas. Sasquatches, yeah, exactly. You know, and even like UFO sightings, you know, they used to always be referred to as like alien. Now it's like, well, what if it's time travelers? What if it's interdimensional people, you know, traveling through dimensions? Well, and that's another thing.
That's like, another thing.
He used to always just be this thing just from nature. Now he's an interdimensional being who can travel to, like, what's the real story there? You know, there's so many things tossed in that area. I have gone out on Bigfoot hunts, and have searched areas for him, and it's amazing that in some of the areas I've been, I haven't run into something of some kind of like cryptid or some kind of creepy nature. And it's before people had the internet and the ability to spread it in the masses and get anything like
Yeah.
we've talked about the Slender Man and how quickly the Slender Man just blew up and became this way big phenomenon. And and I've talked about it like with magic and different religions and stuff.
Give me the Mike Ricksecker book, and I'm going to look for Hat Man, because Tracy's never heard of the Hat Man.
Well, and I'll continue.
Go ahead and continue.
With the Slender Man, it became such a big phenomenon, and there was actually there was a story of those girls who stabbed that one other girl over like a Slender Man myth and everything.
Oh yeah, that story.
And she survived, luckily, but it was a whole twisted stories, and talking about Maniac Monday, that's definitely a maniac situation where these girls were literally trying to almost sacrifice this girl to a Slender Man like being. And that's really interesting, because to think that something that just popped up when I was graduating high school could have, as quickly as the Boogeyman or Candyman or something like that, it became this big thing that a lot of people were afraid of. So I'm always amazed at how something through just the sheer belief in certain people's mind can almost manifest itself and become a reality to certain people.
Read this little section.
All right.
And I won't share the stories, but I'll share a little bit. It's
from A Walk in the Shadows by Mike Ricksecker.
you can get
He's
this.
going to read a part about the Hat Man.
Yeah, I'm gonna read a part about the Hat Man. The Hat Man is probably the most feared type of shadow person out of all varying kinds of these types of supernatural entities. In terms of pure horror, the Crawler is probably the scariest. Witnesses Crawler. We'll get to that in chapter 7, but that's what he's saying. But since the particular phenomena isn't reported nearly as often as the Hat Man, the lidded ones get the nod. The Hat Man is essentially a type of humanoid figure, shadow person who wears a hat, usually a fedora or sometimes a top hat. I heard of one account in which the Hat Man was seen wearing a Archer-style hat like something out of Robin Hood. Creepy. Many times...
Hi-ho!
I was thinking of Men in Tights, but that's how my brain works.
That's a good movie.
Many times the Hat Man will simply take a particular type of style. For instance, the shadow person wearing a fedora will often don a trench coat, while those seen wearing a top hat may also be wearing a cape, like Superman. Details of the clothing are usually sketchy, since everything about the entity is still black. However, its general outline of the being that usually gives one a sense of what these entities might be wearing. Sometimes the clothing in its shadow form may also be seen moving, as we'll learn in the following accounts. These different styles, however, don't seem to correlate. I can't read. With any one particular goal. In other words, just because the shadow person is wearing a fedora, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's there to terrorize you. Similarly, just because it's wearing a top hat, it doesn't necessarily mean that's only there to be an observer. It may have some other agenda in mind. One really doesn't know until the situation is at hand. So there you go.
Yep.
And he's got other stories of other people's accounts. But that's pretty much a general idea of what the Hat Man. He's the scariest one, and he's not just an observer. He's got something in mind. And sometimes in some of the stories, he's got two little minions with the red eyes staring at you.
And to address the comments, to my mom Hope out there, it's really interesting because Ted Bundy, there's been a lot of stuff that's been released about him recently, and there's the documentary, and then there was the movie where Zac Efron played him, which Zac Efron, we watched, my wife and I, we watched the documentary beforehand, and then we watched the movie with Zac Efron. Zac Efron actually like killed it as Ted Bundy. He was creepy. He definitely played the part how it should have been played. So he was a little bit too pretty for the role, you know, like Ted Bundy wasn't an ugly guy, but he definitely wasn't like Zac Efron. But it was a solid movie all in all together. So the Ted Bundy sometimes interesting because like he was so intent on continuing his cause or whatever he wanted to do, where he escaped out of prison and then immediately stuck to Florida and started killing again. You know, he was definitely an interesting case. And you know, I saw that David and Tracy was talking about like Jack the Ripper, and that's definitely what you think of when you think of like a Hat Man.
That was crazy. It's like I said, John Wayne Gacy, the guy, all the boys trapped in his house.
We've been talking maniacs. Let's talk about the investigation stuff we want to talk about though, because we wanted to definitely get into that tonight. Chris and I went out to the J Paper Mill abandoned railroad bridge. And then he went out again today and shot more stuff and got some interactions. But we have a video, or I'm sorry, an audio clip we're going to be releasing later this week of Chris saying something and some kind of knocking in response. So we'll put that up and see what you guys think of that.
And it is weird because all the wood, the railroad ties, is almost gone because it sounded like kind of.
And we were sitting up there very still, you know.
It wasn't on the metal. It didn't seem. It didn't.
It sounded like wood or stone. It was
wood or stone, and we weren't moving at all, and we were standing still.
And like we could play earlier clips, and you can hear any of the birds knocking around us and any of that stuff. It's way different of a sound.
It's not a woodpecker because it's too cold for them.
So we'll be putting that up. But let's talk about the Jade experience. You know,
oh my gosh,
we went out to that bridge, and you guys, if you want to check out the Facebook, you can check out some of those pictures. They're really beautiful. Just the area was beautiful, and we might camp out there sometime. That was something we was talking about for sure.
Because it led me, because I was filming the skirts of the fence line, the front pretty much of the old Jade Paper Mill, and somehow it led me to the other side of the fence, and I kept walking and walking. It was more open area, right back to the bridge again. And I filmed another, I call it EVP session, silent session, right there on the bridge again from the other side.
Try to make sure that we look at everything, and it seems that when we revisit locations, we seem to have more interactions with things,
Just like we talk about Deep Lock as well.
So that's why we talk about it in a certain certainty, because we have had a lot of interactions with stuff in that way. So don't think we know what we're talking about. We've had experience in certain areas.
We put theories to it, and you just can't go to a location once and be done. You have to go multiple times because you might get different multiple answers from different spirits that are roaming the area at that time. And Charlene says, please don't post a day when you're camping out. Stay safe. I mean, we might do overnight. We might camp out. That depends on how the things are out in the world. But the overnight we can possibly do because we've been out there before at night.
Yeah. We've been out on the other end at night,
Yeah, we've been on the other end at night as well. And we're always watching each other's backs, make sure nothing. We always kind of stay close, but not too far. We always walk, but we don't wander off too far from each other.
No, we do pretty good.
Yeah, we do pretty good about that. Some of the old mills still standing, the metal equipment, which is pretty cool, which is on my Facebook right now. And I'm probably going to share that on some of the Facebook page too.
Yep.
Because I got some older pictures I took last winter, but this is like kind of more greener, and I kind of like it better. It looks more spookier going down that out of a movie with the one lamp pole down this old entrance with the rails. Nature's taking over. Something out of a scary movie. It reminds me of every time I go there and look at that one lamp pole that the trees are taking over. Why do you think some ghosts and spirits never leave a certain location? There you go. Chime that in, guys. Why do you think some ghosts or spirits never leave a certain location? Go to work. And we were someone because I also got Instagram, and I shared some of my pictures of Jade. And I'm friends with a couple of the paranormal group, actually from Haunted Road Media and Perfect Trust Productions. They're the ones that film over Ireland and did those investigations that Vanessa
Oh, okay. Okay.
and Gwen Clapper. I want to give a shout out to them. But Gwen said it could have been a severe industrial accident, and she felt like there were suicides there because it is a bridge and it is water.
I mean, that happens a lot, unfortunately.
It's not the very tall bridge, but you put it short enough, or you just want to just in the river. Well, that makes a good point because she felt that the energy from our pictures, just pictures. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, even back then, they didn't keep records of a lot of industrial accidents or deaths. Or any traumatic event could happen to somebody that changed their life. And when they passed away later on in life, they could have gone to that location and roamed those grounds because of that one traumatic event. I hope I don't go back to NTB and haunt that. Fuck that shit.
No. I don't want to haunt any of my workplaces.
I figure I threw that out there. I was going to ask that too. You don't want to start a new ink?
No, I don't want to start a new ink for sure because this has been doing us pretty good too.
Right now he's writing each letter from what's left of those letters in vowels and repeating letters taken out for the sigil. And after he's done, he will hold it up there and show it to you. In the process of after that as well, he will explain. I'm slowly learning the process. I'm getting there, better and better. All right, guys.
We get this capped.
Yeah, we don't want to spill the dragon's blood. Now, he's going to...
This is our sigil for the night.
That's our sigil from... You take out the protection from followers. He took out the vowels and repeating letters. And you make a symbol out of that. And he did that with the dragon's blood ink.
And that dude just explained it. And he is just learning about this. And it's amazing that he's already learned so much knowledge about this.
I'm trying.
Hey, no.
I'm remembering little by little.
You did exactly. So that's what this is. So what we'll do is we'll burn this off. And this will be a protection for all you followers and we just appreciate you guys so much. You know, you guys come in, you watch us, you interact, you talk, you tell us your stories, you answer our questions. You know, we just appreciate everything you guys do. So don't take this next thing as a thing of disrespect. This is actually a good thing. I'm going to crumple this up and get it ready to burn.
For order to work, you have to burn it. That's one of the rules. You have to crumble it up and you have to burn it.
Well, the crumple part is not necessarily like.
Well, it's easier for us to burn that way.
You gotta get rid of it.
But it makes it another way where it gets it all in one. It's our rule, as you say.
And we make sure
home
we
rule.
take care of everything. Yeah.
Just like there's home rules in Monopoly. Home rules. Now you're using that sage.
So yeah, go ahead and tell them something if you want to talk about that question you asked earlier again one more time.
Oh. For all those that are still here, what is the one reason why a ghost or spirit would stay at a location? Any location. House, outdoors, or even like a vehicle, anything. Why would they stay in a certain location or material thing? There we go. Material thing. Why would they stay there? If you want to throw another thing down in the chat while he's performing the sigil, finishing it off so properly, go ahead and throw it down in our chat room. And he writes down everything right in his little book here. He's got many little books, but that's one. Your mom says may have unfinished business. I don't know what she was referring to. See, welcome. We're glad you can make it. It's Witchy Wednesday. So we'll be digging into a bunch of the trials and all kinds of different witches.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun night.
Even the one you shared with me, the only one in Ohio.
Yeah, there's one reported witch trial in Ohio.
One.
And it was a century after all the other ones were taking place.
And 200 years after, over a year. No, 300 years.
Technically,
2.5.
Almost 2,000 years from some of the early ones because they happened
they had
BC
way before
times.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about some witchy subjects tonight.
Witchy.
Yeah, it'll be
Witchy
fun.
Wednesday. It'll be fun.
That's why I'm wearing a witchy hat. Yeah.
He's got the witchy hat. He's got that going on. We also got this from my wife, the book of 5,000 spells.
The Element Encyclopedia of 5,000 spells, exactly.
And somewhere in your collection you have a witch's Bible as well.
Somewhere in my collection? You mean a witch's Bible right here?
Oh, he did pull it out. Good job.
Yeah, I had that pulled out before you said, like when you were coming to talk to her, it's like, oh no, that was literally one of the books I've had pulled out all day.
That's right. Did we go to Savers one time and I bought 2 of them and I gave you, or is that another book? I forget, but I know I purchased a book.
That might have been this one, yeah.
That might have been that one, thinking she didn't have it.
Yeah.
Then
she already had it, yeah.
Gotcha.
I think that's how I got this one, yeah.
Oh, you watched the Bell Witch video there, Charlena? Isn't that interesting?
Oh, Charlena, welcome.
She watched the one I shared.
Nice. Yeah, we're going to be talking about some witchy subjects. We'll be going through some stuff in the Witch's Bible. I've got a couple of other books that are witchy books as well. We
also got material for reading.
some stories. I have a couple of stories. I have a story of a local witch trial and everything like that. So
oh yeah,
we're going to be talking about plenty of stuff. We're going to get into this right now. We're shuffling up for our tarot card pull. Question we'll throw out a couple times. You guys are used to the show format. What is a witch in a movie or TV show that is definitely like scared you a little bit, or like definitely was kind of spooky? I
already got one.
I know my mom's probably gonna throw this one out here, but I'm gonna go ahead and throw it out beforehand and beat her to the punch. The Wicked Witch of the West from The Wizard of Oz. The West is the one who's attacking you, and like with the army of flying monkeys and everything.
Oh.
Now, before she eventually gets taken out by something as simple as water, like the Wicked Witch is definitely terrifying.
There's a good witch,
and
too.
she is, oh man, her voice, her cackle, everything is just, and she's so menacing.
Wasn't those
you know?
flying monkeys terrifying? Back?
Oh yeah.
Those
The
ain't
idea
bats.
of, like,
Those are flying
Giant,
monkeys.
full flying monkey. Oh, that's totally terrifying. Yeah. So
Those
what's a witch from a movie that scared you guys?
You want to know mine? Well, it's not from a movie, actually. It's from a TV series.
That's fine. Movie or TV series?
American Horror Story Covenant.
Oh, The Coven, yeah.
That main... She was a bitch. But anyway.
Yeah, oh no, dude. That show had some very good... I also love some of the witches in there because they were great, you know?
Oh, yeah. They played a great role in that.
All right, so we're going to pull our tarot card for the show. And as we always do, you know, we do it to get intention, to get some kind of message. So let's check this out. All right. It's 5 of oysters. So I'm pretty sure this is the 5 of oysters. Now we're using the Alice in Wonderland deck if you think some of these are weird tarot readings.
Yeah, these... Oh, yeah. See, she already said it, but you stole it from your mom. It's like Wizard Oz. It's
She's
fun.
terrifying.
It's funny that you mentioned that because back in the day at Grandma's house, we used to have a movie marathon,
Yeah.
a VHS, and we all dressed up in certain characters. And of course, I was one of the flying monkeys. Also missing the broom. Joe says you're missing the broom.
All right. So, this one is turn around in a bad situation, new goals, and reconnection with families or lover. So, I think it's just hanging out more with the family, producing new goals for the show and everything, you know. So, definitely a good one.
More of on the haunted and supernatural side than, like, say, the Salem witch trials, or even... I even shared this earlier from across the UK because it started way earlier before that. The Pendle Witch trials over there, and where the king wrote that demonology book. Again, it's crazy stuff. But anyway, here we go.
I have a broom. I can go grab a broom, Joe. Don't worry.
It's kind of dirty though. But it's a dirty broom. This is like dirty. Oh, there, Cat in the Hat reference. Anyway, let's go. The Bell Witch or Bell Witch haunting is a legend from southern United States folklore centered on a 19th century Bell family of northwest Robertson County, Tennessee. John Bell Sr., who made his living as a farmer, resided with his family along the Red River in an area currently near the town of Adams. According to legend, from 1817 to 1821, his family in the local area came under attack by a mostly invisible entity that was able to speak, affect the physical environment, and shapeshift. Some accounts record the spirit also to have been clairvoyant and capable of crossing long distances with superhuman speed, in or of being in more than one place at a time. I've seen that over there in the corner of my eye. In 1894, newspaper editor Martin V. Ingram published his authenticated history of the Bell Witch. The book is widely regarded as the first full-length record of the legend and the primary source for subsequent treatments. The individuals recorded in the work were known historical personalities. In modern times, some skeptics have regarded Ingram's efforts as a work of historical fiction or fraud. Other researchers consider Ingram's work as a Nazit folklore study and accurate reflection of belief in the religion during the 19th century. While not a fundamental element of the original recorded legend, the Bell Witch Cave in the 20th century became a source of continuing interest, belief, and generation of lore. Contemporary artistic interpretations, such as in the film
Hey, what's up, Tanya?
and music, have expanded this reach of the legend beyond regional confines of the southern United States. And I have like 18 pages of it, but I won't read the whole thing. But that's just a brief description.
Yeah, that's
Of the-
a small.
This is why I like this so much, because it has more. It seems more realistic.
Well,
like
there's so
something
many-
was going on.
and there's so
there.
many layers to it as well.
There's so many layers. We know what was going on in Salem witch trials.
Yeah.
And okay, let's go with the story or anything you want to share, since I read the story.
Yeah.
That's my most favorite one. I'm fascinated with the Bell Witch and the Bell Witch Cave, and it's not too far from us, actually. It's in Tennessee, so one in the town of Adams, Tennessee.
Yeah.
So I really want to. Oh, and it's the only death that they considered that was something unseen or supernatural. They recorded in his biopsy.
Yeah.
They couldn't figure it out, so they cracked it up as something supernatural happened to him. Done.
Well, and it's one of those things where whenever you have anything where like the biopsy, like the medical reasoning was something
His
related
death
to
certificate said something.
paranormal,
Paranormal, yeah,
yeah.
that
It's a
killed him.
weird thing, you know. For
That's
sure.
the only one in history that's cracked up the death as paranormal related haunting.
So, we for the people just popping in, we're doing Witchy Wednesday. So if you guys have any stories of any kind of witches or any kind of things that interest you, you can toss those out. We also asked the question, what's a witch from a movie that has scared you? We talked about the witch from Wizard of Oz, you know, the Wicked Witch. So any kind of things you want to toss out in that direction. I'm about to read a story here. That's something I was reading into earlier. But before I do that, something I'm going to be doing throughout the show is I'm going to be going over a timeline of some of the witchy events that have happened over the period of time and doing a small description of a couple of those. So I'm going to start with a couple of those real quick.
Yep. And the Bell Witch one started in 1817. That's when this all started. Oh, and while you're looking it up, another side note, Andrew Jackson was a general then. He was interested in the Bell House. And before he was president, he was the general of the army. And he wanted to stay 3 nights there at the Bell House. But only ended up staying one, saying he'd rather face the British Army than stay another night in that house. That's crazy.
And these are people who aren't rocked easily by things,
No,
you know?
they're not. They're soldiers and a general that was
And at a time that was less secure than the time we live in now, and
Oh,
in
yeah.
some ways, you know, for sure.
And that was after the War of 1812, which went longer after, because it makes sense because Andrew Jackson was a general during the War of 1812, but it went on longer than that. That's when it was first reported.
And you can trace prosecution for witchcraft or that kind of sorcery back to BC times.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm going to start the this calendar at 1252. So in November 13th of 1252, torture for heresy was enacted by Pope Innocent IV. So he authorized papal inquisitors to use torture in prosecution of heresy. This move set the stage for torture of witches, since witchcraft would become heresy. At first, torture could not be repeated. Eventually, suspects were tortured until they confessed. Now, this continues on into a very famous person, one of the most famous women in all of history. November 13th, 1431, Joan of Arc.
Ooh.
Joan of Arc was burned at the stake for being a witch, or being accused of being associated with witchcraft. She was burned alive. The woodpile was constructed to prolong her death and make sure she was in agony throughout all of it, you know? So that's another part that was an early part
Very
of somebody
early.
being, prosecuted for such a thing.
Was this over in Europe?
And that was, it's Joan of Arc, you know, so...
Yeah.
November 13th, 1486, The Hammer of Witches, publication of the Maleficarium, The Hammer of Witches, written by 2 inquisitors, Henrik Kramer and Jacob Sprenger. It was widely distributed and responsible for much of the similarity in witch trials and confessions. With papal backing, the Malice claimed that those who did not believe in witchcraft were heretics, and itself a crime punishable by death. So those are some of the early things, and as we go on, I'll be talking about some more. I'll make sure I mark myself there, but we'll be talking about some more stories of that as well.
Oh, and that book I talked about in the Bell Witch, I got it. It's got, because I got this off Wikipedia. They could be resourceful. They really put stuff out. The Martin Van Buren Ingram biography, authenticated history of the famous Bell Witch with Andrew Jackson. And someone didn't like the person. Oh, your wife is a witch. Telling.
Well, and I was talking about it earlier. Like, there are reports of people being prosecuted as witches just because a guy hit on him, and they rejected him, and rejected him maybe in an aggressive fashion, made him feel belittled, and he would then report that person as a witch so that he could get them prosecuted, knowing that the process was very simple. And if he could get enough buddies together, he could definitely have the public backing.
Excuse me. And think about this: the children. They used the children as witnesses, or the people say, "Hey, you act like this when this certain person's around, like she's bewitching you or something like that." Because that's a lot in the Salem witch trials. And actually, it's also, they used the kid. If you look on earlier, I shared it. I might share it again. It's on YouTube. The Pendle Witch trials. And this was before Salem, where the kids say, she's a witch, she's a witch, she's a witch. Gone. Just because they didn't like you or something happened to the family. There was a lot of family riots and disputes back then.
Yeah. And I really like Charlena's comment. Its history went from prosecuting people as witches to bogus claims of mental disorders to lock them up. And that's exactly right.
That's another good reason.
We talked about that a little bit with some of these, mental hospitals and things of that nature. And there have been mediums who have talked about this before, where at what point does somebody believing or seeing some kind of angels, spirits, some kind of otherworld entity become perceived as just a mental disorder, and then people for the longest time didn't report anything for fear of being locked up and being perceived as crazy because the loved ones around them wouldn't even listen to it, and it wasn't a thing that you could talk about. Things are getting better now, and people are talking about things more, but for the longest time that wasn't any kind of thing you could talk about.
There's a spherical stone in Myrtle Hill Cemetery in Valley City said to mark the grave of a woman who in life was a very tormented soul. The woman was marred and married and had several young sons. Unfortunately for the woman, all the men in her life took great pleasure at abusing her, both physically and mentally. After years of continuous abuse, the woman have had enough and plotted her revenge. She finally decided to poison the family's water supply in a well in the backyard. So successful was in the woman's plan that she ended up killing her entire family, which is then disposed of by dumping them one by one into a well. But with almost an entire family now missing, it didn't take long for the neighbors to get suspicion. Sorry if I can't pronounce stuff. Sorry, Charlena. I know you're grading me. Eventually, the bodies were discovered and the woman arrested. Prior to her trial, she was deemed unfit to stand trial and instead was committed in a state mental hospital for the rest of her life. Upon her death, the woman's remains were relocated to Myrtle Hill Cemetery and buried beneath the round stone. That's the spot the woman's ghost is believed to haunt this day. There is a variation on this popular legend that states that the woman in question was also a witch who turned to the dark side in order to seek her revenge. She is said to have practiced her dark craft in and around the cemetery, including the nearby woods. After the murders of family were discovered, the townspeople said to have stoned the woman to death. Her body was then buried under the giant sphere in order to keep her from rising back out of the grave. In addition, she was also buried standing up to further make escape difficult. But it would appear as though these precautions did little good because the woman's spirit is said to have found a way to escape the grave and return to places she worked her magic. The stone itself has also soaked up some of the woman's evil, and it will feel warm to the touch during winter months, freezing cold in the summer. Even nature seems fearful of the grave, and snow and leaves refuse to fall anywhere near the monument. All right, that was the legend. That's the legend around there.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell the truth. this is going to be like pretty long, so pay attention there, guys. That was the legends I just read of that certain cemetery, and we've been out there before.
Yep. And we didn't touch the ball because we don't want to deal with that.
We already touched enough memorials in question this hand. Anyway, the marker in question in the stone in the spear sitting on top of the square base marks simply Stoskopf. Stand in front of the stone and tell people that no one is buried here, and we all give nervous glances about them as they wait for a ghostly witch to come barreling out of the woods at the time. But the simple truth of it is no one is buried under this stone because it's not a gravestone, it's a family plot marker. 7 plots were originally purchased by the Stoskopf family of Myrtle Hill Cemetery. Today, only 4 of the 7 plots are occupied. George Stoskopf, his wife Alma, their daughter Alma, original, and her husband Joseph Toff. All 4 graves are clearly marked at the short distance away, and we showed that too in our previous video, from the infamous Witch's Ball. As for stone itself, since it was designed to do nothing more than mark the Stoskopf family plot, it bears no other name other than Stoskopf. Now, I'm going to read why there is some truth to the poisoning, but it wasn't witchcraft. And turn the page. Alright, here we go. Now with the truth. And this is why we do this. We always investigate the truth.
Exactly.
We don't investigate the legend. Never. Alright. Here we go. I couldn't see, so I'm using my light, so I'm a blind,
you're fine. Yeah.
blind old fuck. But anyway. Martha Wise is an individual whose heinous crimes have become intertwined. Heinous crimes, sorry. Have become I know Charlene is really great to me tonight. Sorry, Charlena. Has become intertwined with the Myrtle Hill Cemetery legends. During a New Year's Day dinner in 1925, Wise poisoned her aunt Lillian Genke's entire family, including 4 children. Crazy bitch. Lillian lingered for several days before finally passing away. When police began investigating, they found that while she was never convicted, Wise had been suspected of poisoning her first husband, Albert Wise, and even her own mother, Sophie Hazel. What the fuck? Hey, thank you. I knew I seen those long arms behind me. In 1925, Martha Wise was convicted of the first-degree poisoning of the Genke family, as well as resulting death of her Aunt Lillian, and was given a life sentence. Martha served her time at Marysville Reformatory, where she became something of a model prisoner. Denied parole 7 times. I can't read tonight. Several times. Wise had her sentence changed from first-degree murder to second-degree and was granted parole in 1962. She died in June 28, 1971. The aspect of the Wise crimes that would eventually link the legend of Myrtle Hill Cemetery to the factual events in the life of Martha Wise is that several of Wise's victims, including Sophie Hazel and Lillian Genke, are buried in Myrtle Hill Cemetery. Martha Wise, however, is not. She is buried in Marysville. So, there you go. That was the truth. There was some truth to that legend. Some people were poisoned. 2 of the victims of her are buried in that cemetery. Those are probably the ones that haunt the cemetery.
I could definitely see that, yeah.
But the one that did the poisoning, she's buried in Marysville. So there you go. There's the history.
And the real story.
And the real story, the legend and the real story of Myrtle Hill Cemetery and why we investigate the truth.
Last left off, it was the Hammer Witches in November 13th of 1486. So now we're in November 13th of 1532. And the HRE decrees death for witches. So, there was an execution of 3 witches, and then this led to the interest and exploration of more people as witches. So this was one of the starts that, think of it, as one of those early dominoes that's knocked over that leads to more investigations, you know.
Oh, I'm going before you start. Charlene just threw this up there while I was reading this. Did you say June 28th, 1971? Yes. 666 in numerology. That's some crazy shit. Thank you, Charlene.
So in November 13th, 1532, Holy Roman Emperor decrees witchcraft can be determined by I'll get it right now.
It's okay, sir.
Judicial.
I messed
Yeah,
up too.
yeah. Judicial torture and punishable by burning to death. Then in November 1542, secular government confirms religious belief. English Parliament makes witchcraft a capital crime. The legal code carries over to the New World colonies. 1550, about mid-century, infanticide began to come to notice in the courts. Along with the development, witchcraft is increasingly seen as a secular crime rather than an
You're going to have to say it or butcher it.
yeah, I'm gonna butcher it, but
That's all right.
ecclesiastical. Okay, I think I got it actually, or
Yeah.
spiritual mistake. Then in November 13th, 1556, the French government interprets natural causes. French Parliament issues an edict that every expectant mother must register her presence with and have witness of the birth. A stillborn or dead infant could lead to murder charges and execution of the mother. So, in November 13th, 1556, they would actually murder a mother if her child was born stillborn, considering it something that she did wrong, you know?
Shit.
In November 13th, 1560, witchcraft is linked to sex. Women begin to be accused of witchcraft and sexual crimes. For the first time, women have legal standing as the accused. So that's another part. And then in 1563, in the Scottish courts, they declare witchcraft a secular crime, and they start using tortures like the wheel, where they put you on the wheel and they tighten the bounds farther and farther, and it starts to pull you over
What's
the wheel.
that one I just said about that dude? He put him on the ground, and there was like boards, and they kept adding stones and stones and stones and
Yeah.
crushing him to death. What the fuck, people?
Well, and that was the thing about Salem, you know, and that's been talked about for multiple times, is that he
crazy.
survived for days like that.
Yeah, he was out. Not just a day. Then he said something like, "Try to repeat the Lord's Prayer" or something. It's like, how can a person repeat the Lord's Prayer if they worship the devil? You can't.
One, I'll
Go ahead. Sorry.
the last one I'll have for the timeline, and then we'll continue on with more of it later in the show, is in November 13th, 1580. The English witch hunts begin in earnest. Over 1,000 are put to death. Where the sex of the most dead is known, over 90% are women. Most witch prosecutions coincide with redistribution of property and wealth from working peasantry to wealth.
Sounds familiar.
So, yeah, they were literally taking women's land because they knew they could just go in and just, boop, all right, you're a witch, we kill you, cool, we can have all your land now, you know. So it was definitely, that's where you start to see the shift go mainly towards women. The modern day witches community, and it's, let me see, like, over 300 pages of rituals, how to practice witchcraft in the modern day. It even has like demonstrations. There's like a whole section that's just like, you know, illustrations and things of that nature. All kinds of just like really, really interesting stuff. So A Witch's Bible, it's by Janet and Stuart Farrar, Farrar, and it's a very common book in the Wiccan and witchcraft community.
Yep.
So definitely something worth checking out. But go ahead with what you're going to say, dude.
Linda says, I went to Scotland. There are many witches there now. I believe it. And Tanya says, yo, You screwed if your husband died. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, for sure. It was a ridiculous time.
And Charlene, this is a good point. This is another. Witch hunters were paid by clergy like the bounty hunters, blood money. Same thing happened in Salem. They send people door to door as if you're a witch or not. Crazy fucking shit.
Yeah.
Knock on their door. Oh, you practicing witchcraft? Come on, you're arrested. We take your property. Yeah, you make a. Thank you, Charlene. I was going to mention that, but I forgot.
All right, guys. So I'm gonna go a little bit more into the timeline of witchcraft and history. November 13th. If you notice, a lot of these happen in November. 1589. It's called 133 in one day. In Quedlinburg, 133 witches executed in one day. So just imagine that 133 women were it doesn't say just women. It could have been men and women. But were accused of witchcraft and it executed all within one day in the same area. So 133 people in one area.
One day.
1590, civil and religious. 1590 into 1700, Scottish witch hunts led to over 3,000 accusations and about 1,300 executions.
Good God.
The hunt was spurred on by the General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church, although the prosecution and executions were civil.
Think about it. What started most of these witch hunts? The church.
Exactly.
Church.
November 13th, 1608, Compendium Maleficarium. 1608, the most comprehensive guide to the identification, capture, questioning, and execution of witches is published. The Compendium Maleficarium featured illustrations of some of the more bizarre behaviors ascribed to witches, including boiling babies and kissing the devil's buttocks. And they actually have an illustration of a bunch of witches kissing a devil's buttocks on the thing there, In November 13th, 1610, in Germany, there was a craze. The German witch craze was at its highest. Tens of thousands die. More than 80% are women. So tens of thousands, So we're talking about like 5 digits.
Screw the Black Plague. They're witch hunting.
Yeah. In November 13th, 1647, Alcyone, a widow hanged for witchcraft in Hartford, Connecticut. Hers was the first trial and execution expressly for witchcraft in the colonies. Her daughter Alice was accused of witchcraft 30 years later in Massachusetts.
Go figure.
Yep. In November 13th, 1649, there was a reward for witches. A witch pricker is awarded 20 shillings for every witch he finds in the English town of Newcastle on Tyne. 30 women were publicly accused, stripped, and pricked. Not surprisingly, most were found guilty.
Jesus. When you get up to the
I'm gonna stop
Salem,
for now. Yeah,
I'll read this part of the Salem witch trials.
Yeah. There's you know what? It's almost to Salem actually. So we'll just take it all the way in. I'll finish this out real quick.
Go ahead, finish it.
In November 13th, 1656, widow Ann Hibbins. Ann Hibbins tried and convicted of witchcraft in Massachusetts colony and hanged. Hibbins was a woman of property, having inherited from her husband. Her main crime, however, was challenging the religious, secular, and familiar structure of the colony. November 13th, 1661, in Hartford, Connecticut, witch craze outbreak. Over a dozen accused. 4 were hanged. 3 women. The 4th was the husband of one of the women. A lot of the others fled in that situation.
I would have too.
And then November 13th, 1692, Salem, Massachusetts.
Okay. We'll get
And I'm going to read the small, quick one, and then you could read the main part.
Okay.
It's another witch craze outbreak, which spread to surrounding communities. Since confessing witches were not executed, a large number of the accused admitted to being witches. While the possessed young girls were the central accusers, most of the bringers of the those bringing the accusation of witchcraft were men. Over 200 were accused. 75% of them women. Most of the men were relatives of the accused women. By the time Governor Phipps halted the proceedings, 14 women had been hanged and 5 men hanged. So go ahead and finish that out.
Well, I'm going to read some of
I'll get into the Ohio one after that.
I'm going to read some of the comments first before
Okay, go ahead, yeah.
I shoot out. Charlena says, wasn't there a group called the Quakers? Were they Amish or not?
No, Quakers were not
I think they
Amish,
did Bible spills.
but they were, I think, like, along the, I think more of, like, the Mormon or, like, that kind of religion. I think the Quakers were more associated with something like that, yeah.
We have to go looking. I'll look into it. We'll look at it more.
I think Benjamin Franklin was a Quaker.
Yeah, William Penn was a Quaker.
Yep.
Tanya says that. And Charlene says, so sad, blessed him. That's when you were reading. See, woman couldn't hold power, land, or money. Screwed without a man. Major suckage. Yeah, it was very sad back then. It was very sad back then. Alright. And he left off at the Salem witch trial part, which I will read that. I'm going to, excuse me while I turn my light on because I'm blind. I want to make sure I get all of it. Thank good for phone lights. Alright. Here goes the story of the Salem witch trials. Well, just a little bit. Just a little thing out of, I found out of Wikipedia that I can print off and read. The Salem witch trials were a series of hearings and prosecutions of people accused of witchcraft in colonial Massachusetts between February 1692 and May 1693. More than 200 people were accused. 30 were found guilty, 19 of whom were executed by hanging, 14 women and 5 men. It's crazy. One other man, Giles Gorey, was pressed to death for refusing to plead, and at least 5 people died in the jail.
That's ridiculous.
Arrests were made in numerous towns beyond Salem and Salem Village, known today as Danvers. Notably Andover and Topsfield. The grand juries and trials for this capital crime were conducted by a court of oyer and terminer in 1692 and by a superior court of judice. Sorry if I butchered that. No, it's not judicial. It's judicature in 1693. Both held in Salem town, where the hangings also took place. It was the deadliest witch hunt in history of colonial North America. Only 14 other women and 2 men have been executed in Massachusetts and Connecticut during the 17th century. Hey, you talked about that Connecticut one earlier. The episode is one of colonial America's most notorious cases of mass hysteria. It has been used in political rhetoric and popular literature as a vivid cautionary tale about the dangers of isolationism, religious exorcism, false accusations, and lapses in due process. It was not unique, but a colonial America example of a much broader phenomenon of witch trials in the early modern period, which took also place in Europe. Many historians consider the lasting effects of the trials to have been highly influential in subsequent United States history. According to historian George Lincoln Burr, the Salem witchcraft was the rock on which the RC shattered. Sorry if I butchered some of these words, guys. I apologize. And just a little bit more. At the 300th anniversary events in 1992, bless you,
Sorry.
to commemorate the victims of the trials, a park was dedicated in Salem and a memorial in Danvers. In November 2001, an act passed by the Massachusetts legislature exonerated 5 people, while another one passed in 1957 had previously exonerated 6 other victims. As of 2004, there was still talk about exonerating all victims, though some think that happened in the 19th century as Massachusetts colonial legislature was asked to reverse the attainders of George Burroughs and others. In January 2016, the University of Virginia announced its Gallows Hill project team had determined that the execution site in Salem where the 19 witches had been hanged The city dedicated Proctor's Ledge Memorial to the victims there in 2017.
So, like, finally, just in 2017, they finally dedicated the land to the people who suffered those
Why did it
injustices.
take so long? Exonerate all, not just certain people. Why not do it to all the people that were accused?
Yeah, because they weren't criminals, you know?
They weren't criminals. Yeah, I was like, why don't do that to all? Just
Exactly, Tanya. I completely agree. It's ridiculous that it took that long just for justice to be served to some people who were falsely accused. You know, we're Ohioans here, so I'm going to read the only recorded witch trial that happened in Ohio.
Oh, Charlene says, do that to me and I'm haunting your asses.
I
Damn
feel
straight.
you there, Charlene. Dude,
That's
rock
why
on.
they consider those grounds haunted still, because it was just not right.
So I'm going to read the Ohio witch trial that happened, you know?
Oh yeah, that took 100 years
after. It was 100 years after
all
the Salem stuff, you know?
Well, which is probably still going on even to... They thought it was going to be quick. No.
So, it was in the Hildebrand Evans case, and it didn't occur till 1805. And it was literally a century after, like we said, most of the witch trials had gone on in America.
Right.
It started out like a lot of the Salem witch trials with a couple of bored teenage girls and an outcast older woman. Nancy Evans was an elderly woman who lived alone in a very small cottage at a crossroads with her black cat. And of course, you know, black cats are always associated with some
orange
kind of
bird
stuff.
or yellow birds or orange birds and red and dogs. Those
Exactly.
Cats, birds, and ducks. Yep.
So very little is known about her or the trial, only that the Hildebrandt daughters, who were unnamed in any records, showed signs of being possessed. They and their family all accused Evans of the crime. According to the daughters, the cat could talk and would torture them psychically. Members of the community began to shun the old woman, who understandably thought the entire thing was ridiculous. Finally, a magistrate stepped in. After a bit of research, the community decided the witch's chair was the best way to settle this case. There are two different versions of the witch's chair. The first involved a long pole suspended over a body of water with a swing on the end. When weighed against a Bible, the accused was either weigh less than the Bible, a witch, or weigh more than and thus be dunked into the water. This usually resulted in drowning, as most people, and women in particular prior to the 1920s, as the advert of a more athletic swimsuit didn't swim at all because water was considered bad and they didn't have appropriate clothing. Also, between corsets, stays, and other waist-cinching devices, petticoats, and boots, they tended to suck up water like a sponge and weigh down the wearer, pulling them into the water. The idea was that if a witch was discovered, the person operating the device could shake her off the swing where she would drown, you know. The second is essentially the same but without the water. A set of human-sized scales are constructed, and a book is placed on one end, the accused sits on the other. Again, the book should be lighter than the person if they are really innocent. The various articles I found are somewhat conflicting on which form on the chair was used. One chair was constructed. The elderly Miss Evans was brought to trial. A Bible was placed on one side and the accused brought forward, still not really taking the proceeding seriously. Miss Evans plunked her ass down on the chair, not a slight woman. The Bible went flying, they thus proclaiming her innocent. So, it was a very silly situation all in all.
A future president. This is from the Bell Witch. The account of General Andrew Jackson's visit is confined to Chapter 11 of Ingram's work. That's the book. And I mentioned that earlier in the show. The chapter's letter from Thomas L. Yancey, an attorney in Clarksville, dated 1894. Yancey explained that his grandfather Whitmill Fort was a witness of phenomenon at the Bell homestead, and Fort had related a story of Jackson's visit, which was undated in a letter. Yancey described the grandfather's account as quite amusing to me. The Bell household was strained of resources
Thanks, Newman Outdoors.
from visitors, and Jackson brought a wagon load of supplies with his men, nearing the Bell homestead. The wagon stopped and appeared fastened to his position, despite considerable effort by Jackson's men to free it. Jackson exclaimed, "By the external, boys, it is the witch." A metallic voice was heard in the vegetation. Creepy.
Night-night, Junior Leo.
"All right, General, let the wagon move on. I will see you again tonight." The horses began moving again. That's crazy that some of force was holding them back from. Instead of camping out, the party stayed at the Bell house that evening. Among the Jackson party was a witch layer who boasted of his supernatural exploits. Tiring of the bravado, Jackson whispered, "By the internals, I do wish the thing would come. I want to see him run." The entity arrived and it taunted the witch layer to shoot her. The men's gun would not fire. The witch countered, "I'll teach you a lesson," and appeared to beat the man and let him out of the door by his nose. Jackson exclaimed, "By the external, boys, I never saw so much fun in all my life. This beats fighting the British." The witch told Jackson she would uncover another rascal the next night. That morning, Jackson's men closed to leave for the home as they were apprehensive as to who was next. And that's just a little crazy story of what happened when Andrew Jackson was there.
That's insane.
That's insane. This is why I want to go to that area so bad, because it was maybe, just maybe, because there's so much unexplained out there, that the Bell Witch was real. And it was some kind of force holding the wagon there. And I'm going to add to that story why the wagon stopped before the Bell house and wouldn't move, because Jackson's men were saying, "Oh, we brought silver bullets. We're going to kill us a witch tonight."
Yeah.
And the wagon wouldn't move any further. And he sent Jackson said something, and all of a sudden it moved again, like an apology and stuff like that. This place
So that's why we
with bullshit legend. That's
why we do our own investigations to try to break up the reality from the legends, because unfortunately, when a place is just dripped in legends like this,
Hi, Tyler's mom.
It overshadows and it overcasts the actual reality of any kind of locations that actually may be haunted, because people only want to experience the things of the legend. They're not looking for the reality, you know?
I talked about this yesterday. Someone aired a thing about the Helltown. It was all totally false. It was a major television show.
Yeah.
And everything was so actors in wrong locations. It was crazy. People started to believe it. I forget what she was on, but it was on YouTube. I saw it once. I have to look at it again. So, and Charlene says probably some bad weed. Probably. Here we go, sir.
Well, thank you. So we'll split this deck real quick, and we'll go ahead and pull our card for our tarot pull.
Well, everyone's saying hi to each other. Go ahead. Do your guys' thing.
Well, Perfect Trust Productions over on the YouTube
Gwen.
sign. Yep.
Gwen or
made it
Vanessa.
here. Hi, Gwen Clapper from Perfect Trust Productions. So I'm guessing that's somebody in association with her. Yeah.
Haunted Road Media as well. So they're all...
Yeah, they're all checking us out. Thanks for checking us out, guys. And if you guys have any questions or any kind of comments and stuff, it's Follower Friday. So what we're doing is we're looking for stories and any kind of experiences from any of our followers, whether it be something that has happened to somebody the town you live in, or an own personal experience. We really appreciate all the stories. So here we go. We always pull a tarot card at the beginning of our show to kind of give some kind of insight, some kind of intention for the show, and it's always been a good part of the show because it helps educate us,
Tanya says, "Hi, guys." Hi, Tanya. Welcome back.
Ooh, it's the lovers in the reverse position. So let's go ahead and take a look at that real quick.
Anyone tonight? How's our sound? We just want to know how's our sound.
Yeah, we've been changing some stuff up
We
on the
changed up
mic.
the settings on the mic. How are we sounding right now? I got a feeling someone is following me. Joe's already starting it up, man. He's already stirring up the chat.
Okay.
Someone's watching me, but that's a good remix.
So, the lovers in the reverse position is... Oh, man. Whew. I hope this is an inability to overcome trials, meanness, frustration, hate, and jealousy, someone else butting in on a relationship and destroying it, untrustworthiness, and divorce. So I don't think we're dealing with any of that, though, right now.
No, but probably to put that in perspective, remember I was talking about some of the negative on my YouTube about the sound and all that, and that dislike. And,
Yeah.
And I was
that's
talking,
been a disruption because it's definitely
It's
rocked
been-
around in your brain a little bit.
That's
you know?
why I had a different the video recording device yesterday, because everyone was, and that brings me down. I don't have too many dislikes. If you don't like a video per se or don't like the subject, don't watch.
Yeah.
I always hated that dislike button on YouTube. I don't know why they put it there, but
Well, we'll take that as a
that way, yeah.
yeah, and we'll move past that because
We'll move
we
past
talked
that.
about it. We talked about it earlier before we
Yep.
started recording the show. You know, you and I have dealt with a couple of different negative opinions from people and
Oh,
stuff in the
yeah.
past, so we've learned to deal with that kind of
Oh,
stuff. You know,
yeah.
it happens.
It happens.
So
We change stuff up, use different equipment. I mean, we've been talking about upgrading equipment, and once we get like I said, our finances, we'll get some better equipment so that way you can hear us. I know you can hear us now because we got a bomb-ass mic right here.
yeah, we got the Blue Yeti. It's one of the most common mics in any kind of podcasting and any kind of like YouTube or streaming services. You know, there are other mics that have kind of stepped into its place, but I think the Blue Yeti is still one of the most common mics used out there. You know, I've had this for a couple of years too.
The card means that Charlena has arrived.
Oh, well, Charlene, we're always glad when you come in because you always contribute to the conversation, and you always have something interesting to talk about.
Shoot. Junior Leo's watching. Tracy says hi. Hello, Tracy. Welcome back. Oh, Tracy, I did go to Moundsville. This is from Tracy Glover. They were filming, and on the other side, they painted over the prisoners' art just for a TV show or something. MTV did.
Really?
It was, and the tour guide said, on this side, this is not even the prisoners' artwork. It was meant for a TV series. Someone just redid the whole.
Wow.
Thanks,
So they
MTV.
painted over
Yeah.
the actual art from the prisoners.
Yes.
Wow.
And Joe says those are Vienna sausages drawn on the walls. I guess they're making
Vienna sausages with 2 olives.
Joe, we appreciate you, brother, man. You're so hilarious, dude. He's always, yeah, no, I know about that, Moundsville. That kind of pissed me off when the tour guide told me that story on the other side.
Yeah.
It's like, why would you do that?
It's
And
unnecessary.
on the
It's
sound-
unnecessary.
Yeah, on the other side was some beautiful prisoner artwork because they left
Well,
that alone.
And think about, like, we were in, the Ohio State Reformatory, the Mansfield Reformatory, and, they have some of the original art in there, and then they have some of the stuff that was used in the Shawshank Redemption movie, you
Yeah.
know? So some of it's stuff, but they didn't cover over
They
anything.
covered it and repainted different
No,
kind of
no,
bullshit.
no. There's still some of the art that was from the prisoners, and then there's
All
some
the
of the art.
Jesus.
Yep. And I call it, what was it?
Oh, what was it, Jesus?
It
It
was,
was from a comedian. I know.
yeah, it was,
Oh, he had a thumbs up.
it was Fonzie Jesus.
Fonzie Jesus.
Yeah, because he had thumbs up. Yeah. So
Yeah.
no. It was finger guns Jesus.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, because the Jesus looked like he was throwing out finger guns. So it's finger guns Jesus. If you ever go back and you can watch our Parapsychon walkthrough video, and I know it's one of the clips in there in the early part of that video where I go, finger guns, Jesus, finger guns, finger guns, finger guns, so you can definitely check out the finger guns, Jesus. That's our Parapsychon video. And that actually, we walked through the convention floor, so you can see a lot of the vendors in that one too.
Yes. It was an odd time. You had that list that you always brought up. Oh, what is it? The old, I'm sure people like get a kick out of that haven't heard it before. Now that Charlene mentions that.
All right, so
here we go.
I have a booklet, and it's like stuff they used to hand out in the 70s and 80s, and it was like handed out in police stations and that stuff, but some common signs of deviant pagan or satanic practices, and this one was just called Satanism. Now, we're only going to talk about one part. I've gone over it a couple of times in episodes, but we're going to talk about the songs. If you listen to these songs, you practice Satanism or paganism, and you were definitely looking at the devil. So these are the songs they had as a list on there. I'll go through them all real quick.
Yeah.
First one, pretty obvious. Bark at the Moon by Ozzy Osbourne.
Good song.
Second one, Altar of Sacrifice by Slayer.
I heard that one.
Third song, Suffer Not the Children by Venom.
Oh, yeah.
Fourth song, Possessed by Venom. Fifth song, Devil's Eyes by Merciful Fate. Sixth song, Into the Coven by Merciful Fate. Then seventh song is Black Funeral by Merciful Fate. And then number 8 is one of the most obvious ones. Like, obviously, it's about the devil. The Number of the Beast by Iron Maiden. Like, obviously, that song.
That's a good song.
666, the number of the beast.
I know, but it's such a good song, though.
It's an amazing song.
Oh, fuck yeah.
That whole album. I mean, like,
album,
Hallowed Be Thy Name is my favorite song, but number 9 is Bad Omen by Megadeth. Number 10 is The Conjuring by Megadeth. Number 11 is The Skull Beneath the Skin by Megadeth. Number 12, The Evil by Bloodfest. Yes. Number 13, Tormentor by Wasp, and we've talked about Wasp before.
Yes.
Number 14, Highway to Hell by AC/DC. It's like, well, that's
We were just listening to AC/DC today.
Highway to Hell is not anything about Satanism or anything.
No.
It's literally just talking about, like, partying and those kind of activities that, like, would lead you to
Back
hell.
then, they think you
so
would
it's like
lead you to-
partying,
if you
sex,
party,
drugs, and, like,
rock-
like cocaine and probably shit like that.
Drugs and rock and roll.
So Holy Hell by Possessed was number 16. In the Beginning by Motley Crue was number 17. Council for Cauldron by Lisbon was number 18, and The Oath by King Diamond was number 19. So those were songs that apparently if you listened to those back in the day, you were considered potentially being a Satanist.
Tracy it's a shame people can't play their MP3s backwards to get their satanic messages.
You can, actually. It's really easy to do.
Oh, see, he's a tech whiz.
It's really simple to do.
Tanya
I have a
says,
program that does
I lived
it.
in the 80s. Yeah. Same here. Go straight to hell, Tanya says. Joe says, I remember that stuff. And Ann says, I remember that music. Yeah. I guess we all worship Satan back then if we listened to this music.
My buddy Balmer, he's a little older than I am. And he's one of those dudes where he's been through a lot in life. Life's definitely kicked him around the rocks and everything. He's lived in some bad situations. He's been homeless a couple times and stuff, And he's definitely one of those dudes who, ever since I've known him, I met him about 5 years ago, and I've never seen this dude get rocked by anything outside of, like, something related to some of the family members.
He's had so much happen to him.
Yeah, it's hard
he's built up.
Exactly.
Kind of an immune.
He's a very big dude too. Like he's not like super stocky, but he's a little bit taller than I am, or about the same height as I am, and definitely like he's built. Like he's been thrown around a little bit, and I know he had a rough childhood and shit, but he's not somebody to be easily persuaded. Like some people trust the legitimacy of like an ex-military, like you're ex-military yourself, or a police officer or somebody of that nature. He's the kind of person who he was raised by the streets, so I trust his knowledge and I trust his
knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna tell a story from him real quick because it's something we've never talked about too much, but I'm interested to tell this. So I'm going to read it from his perspective. I grew up in a 100-year-old duplex that was a drug house in the 80s. All the time in my house growing up, the attic's lights would do what they wanted. There were switches at the bottom of the stairs and up at the top where the bedrooms are. So they always chalked it up to that. But, like, you would think just flicker for 20 years, and every time it would happen, the whole hallway, like, from the top of the stairs, down the hallway, and down the stairs, would get ice cold. So, like, if they would try to pass through that area in the middle of the night, it would actually get, like, their room was fine.
Right.
But as soon as they went to the hallway, the temperature would drop like 20, 30 degrees, and it would feel like there was a pressure on their chest the whole time.
Like someone's sitting, like an old hag sitting.
Or something would be like constricting them, or like pushing against them as they were trying to walk forward, or something like that. You know, just some kind of pressure on their chest. And, you know, it was the whole hallway, and all the way downstairs and everything. And as they would get to a certain part, so it would wait to them to get to a certain part down the stairs, and then all of a sudden the closets that would be in the hallway and the doors would start slamming. So the doors would start slamming, and you know, like as it would wait, like they had passed these hallways already, and it would wait and make sure that they were already to like the stairways to go down the steps or to the bathroom or something like that. And then it would start slamming as soon as they were past, to where they had to make the decision to either run downstairs, where who knows what's down there, or run back past the slamming doors to their bedroom.
Like a scene from Paranormal Activity. But
Yeah,
anyway.
and like I said, this is a dude who, like, he doesn't give a shit about anything about, like, you know, like, making some kind of story up to, like, seem cooler or anything like that. Yeah, so I have no doubt that this story is legitimate, you know?
Man, that was wow. You missed the comment before the escape room comment. Can someone share that? Who sent that escape room comment or before that? We sorry we can't get through everything. I was trying to find it while Tylor was telling the story. Yeah, that was a good story.
Yeah, and it's interesting because me and this dude have talked about different stuff. You know, he's open-minded to a lot of stuff, but to have him tell me a story where, like, he was actually, like, legit scared, you know, he's not the type to get scared by much, you know, that's very interesting, you know. And thanks to my buddy Balmer for throwing out that story.
Yeah, thank you for the story.
I let my mind drift a little bit too much, and I'll start thinking about the possibility of once you pass on just being nothing, not existing, there's literally nothing, you know. Like once you die, it's nothing. You know, I unfortunately
I'm getting older, and it comes.
Yeah, and I unfortunately experience pretty severe panic attacks. I've found my ways to work through them, but I start contemplating certain things, and it's not a fun thing, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
And I hope anybody who has experienced anything like that has found their ways to work through that. Also know too, I believe a lot of wonderful things about death too. Like I believe in a lot of theories and a lot of I entertain a lot of ideas about death. So it's like I'm not a negative person or a hopeless person in that area. But sometimes there's those thoughts that creep into your mind that just and unfortunately I had a panic attack today that was pretty severe related to it, you know, and it was not a fun time, you know.
I want to add to that because we do a fair amount, or I do too, a lot of cemetery crawls. There's this one thing I always said. It's sad if you're not remembered or die alone. It's a scary thing.
And I think that's one of the biggest things is people don't want to be remembered, you know. That's unfortunately not where I'm at, you know. It's unfortunately just the thought of once I pass on, that's it. That was my run, you know. That's
scary.
It's a very, very the thought of just once you pass on and to be blank and nothingness and non-existence, and what everything you were was nothing. It didn't matter, you know. Like that's one of the most terrifying things I've been unfortunately thinking about that since I was like 5 or 6 years old. So it's over 20 years of just thinking about that, and a day like today was one of those reminders where I haven't yet gotten over that. As much as I explore the paranormal, I explore, religions, I explore magic, I explore all these different things. I still have that baseline fear. I also think a driving force, but it pokes at me.
And having that traumatic injury close to, it's scary because I was having. I mean, I don't know, because it was kind of scary for you guys because it was over speaker when you're coming back pre when I called. And you can tell the tone in my voice. It wasn't pleasant. I was scared. It was scary shit.
And we didn't know what was going on exactly whenever you had that accident.
It was a lot of fear and panic.
Yeah.
And, I mean, yeah, that was scary. I was like, wow, am I going to... After I passed out, I have the ambulance up to the hospital. I'm like, am I come back? Am I gonna make it? Did they stop it enough where I'm gonna make it?
Yeah.
Because oh my gosh, it is so scary. I mean, even lately I've been thinking about what you were saying. I was thinking about that, and should I make a will already?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's terrible because you experienced a traumatic accident, and we both had our array of issues. We've talked about them a little bit on the show and everything.
We did talk about
but
the fear of death and the existence
and why we believe in and why we pursue some of the things we do.
We keep an open mind to it because keeping open helps our own minds to an extent. We want to keep an open mind to all the stuff we talk about, especially maybe in the reincarnation or another existence other than our physical bodies.
Let's talk about reincarnation for a minute. One of my favorite movies to watch with my daughter is Moana, and in Moana, the grandmother of the main character dies, and she's reincarnated as a big manta stingray.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes.
the idea, and she chose that in her life as a human. So the idea of being able to choose your life you pass on to is an amazing concept. Being able so let's toss this out there real quick. If you could choose the creature outside of being a human that you were reincarnated as if you died, what creature would it be? I'm really interested in a lot of different things, exploration-wise.
Well,
So I'm going to choose a creature that tends to travel around to a lot of different places. Oh, man. What would be the best one for that?
I'm going to say I already know that mine, and it's related to my car out there. They remember that they used to roam the plains and whatnot.
There's still some out there, wild Mustangs.
Wild Mustang.
I get it, dude.
Roaming.
That's definitely a
Roaming the ground.
wonderful creature,
Going
for sure.
fast. Having with your buddies. Go ahead and think of that. There's a lot of comments. We'll get to these comments.
My mom said she would want to come back as a bald eagle.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful creature, for sure.
I just like the fact of me.
I would want to come back as a crow, because I could still communicate and interact with people, but keep my distance and have my own world and my own communication with my own people, So yeah, I'm gonna say a crow.
That's a good one. What about you guys out there? Let me see. Let me get some of these. How far back I missed. We were talking about okay. Have you heard of people having birthmarks that match the way they died?
Yep.
Yes.
That's a very, very popular
I got one
theory.
right here above my.
One people say
stabbed in the back,
stab wounds, any kind of intense marks like that. There are people who have been born with birthmarks that match animal bites and stuff like that. In the front and back. Yeah.
Mine, because it's got that weird shape, but it's big enough.
Yeah, it looks like a puncture wound.
A puncture wound.
That's intense.
Yeah, I've heard of people having birthmarks. I have no birthmarks, so I think I'm new. hey, you could be. You never know. There,